In this episode of the Butt Chronicles, we take a look at Beavis and Butt-Head Episode 6, Scientific Stuff.
Welcome to Industrial Industries World Radio's The Butt Chronicles.
You said welcome.
Oh God.
Hey everybody, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the Butt Chronicles, your audio guide to everything Beavis and Butt-Head. And I'm your host, DJ Glowing Ice. And today we're kicking off Season 2 of the Butt Chronicles and the very first episode of Season 2 of Beavis and Butt-Head called Scientific Stuff. It first aired on May 17th, 1993 on MTV, and that is all you really do need to know. So let's cut the crap, cut the cheese, and get right into what happened in Beavis and Butt-Head Episode 6, Scientific Stuff. It starts in the classroom. There's a close-up shot of a toy rocket sitting on the teacher's desk with a firecracker underneath one of its wings. A hand comes into view to light the firecracker. The firecracker goes off with a small little snap, which makes the toy rocket fall on its side. It then cuts to a full view of the classroom, from the back looking towards the front. Beavis is in view off to the side, as Butthead's up front as he says, "And that's the first time a teacher was shot into space." The classroom moans in disgust, as Beavis laughs and says, "Cool." The science teacher, Mrs. Dickey, is offended and tells Beavis and Butt-Head that they have to do another science project. Only this time, with the help of another classmate. Mrs. Dickey turns to Daria Morgendorfer, a straight-A student and winner of a science award. Daria, being told that she has to help Beavis and Butt-Head, sits at her science table and complains that Beavis and Butt-Head are imbeciles. Beavis laughs and says, "She's right." Mrs. Dickey, though, insists that this would be a good learning experience for everyone. Butt-Head then says, "Oh no, we have to work with diarrhea." Next, we see a bedroom in Beavis and Butt-Head's house. The camera angle is from the ceiling looking down onto the boys in the room. Beavis is sitting on an unkempt bed as Butt-Head kicks around empty cans on the floor. The bedroom has clothes hanging out of its drawers, crates of M80 firecrackers sitting around, along with a barrel of kerosene. The floor is burned and cut in spots. An AC/DC poster is on the wall, along with a stuffed and mounted moose head with a toilet plunger stuck onto its face. The boys are listening to hard rock music as then there's a knock on the door. "It's her," says Butt-Head. Daria walks in and says, "Hey guys." Butt-Head says, "Hey Daria." Daria asks about any new science projects the boys have in mind. The boys throw around ideas, such as pouring salt on a snail, burning ants with a magnifying glass, and farting in a jar and lighting it. Daria asks how someone even learns something like that. Butt-Head says, "Everything I know, I learned from my dad." "Me too," says Beavis. Daria then asks, "You both have the same dad?" "We're not sure. It's possible," says Butt-Head. Daria then starts thinking as a thought bubble appears above her head with a light bulb. Then cut to Beavis and Butt-Head with their thought bubbles, as they have matches striking a matchbox that don't ever light. Cut to the boys and Daria in front of the classroom. Beavis knocks on his forehead and opens his mouth, creating different pitched tones. He then says, "My uncle taught me this trick, only he used a bat." The class then claps. Butt-Head says, "Here's something I learned from my dad," and starts blowing on his thumb, attempting to pass out. Beavis continues to knock on his forehead as Daria speaks to the class. Daria says that Beavis and Butt-Head contribute to the old question of idiocy and if it's genetic or environmental. She goes on to say that in Beavis and Butt-Head's case, it's both. Butt-Head then passes out and falls to the floor. Daria says, "I rest my case." Back in Beavis and Butt-Head's house, the boys are back sitting on their pink couch as Daria is sitting between them. Daria tells the boys they were great for making fools of themselves. The boys laugh and Butt-Head says, "Hey Diarrhea, do you like Get periods? Daria says, analyze the friction caused by digitally oscillating your wiener. The boys laugh, and Butthead says, that was cool. And that is episode 6 of Beavis and Butt-Head, Scientific Stuff. Now let's take a look at the music videos. First up, we have Oingo Boingo with Weird Science. Beavis says college music sucks, then says the video is stupid, and they change it. Then The Cult with Fire Woman. Butthead says the cult rules. Beavis says it kicks ass. Butthead says tattoos are cool. And then Beavis wishes he was born with one. Butthead says, no, you get them when you join the Navy. Next is Danzig with How the Gods Kill. Beavis and Butthead both like it. Butthead says these guys are cool. And the boys remain silent until a slow part of the song comes on. And then Butthead says, for such a big muscular dude, he sure sings like a wuss. And then when Butthead sees a hot chick in the video, he says, come to Butthead. Next is In Excess with Devil Inside. Butthead asks if this is satanic music. Beavis says that it's not cool enough to be. Butthead then says if you play this backwards, it says, this sucks. They talk about how the band's from Austria, and then they do Crocodile Dundee impersonations. They wind up changing it. Then there's Faith No More with Epic. Beavis says, I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. When Butthead sees the singer of Faith No More wearing a Mr. Bungle shirt, he says, his t-shirt says Mr. Bunghole. He then says, I wish this video had some explosions. He doubts there is one, but at the very end of the video, a piano explodes. And those are your music videos. Now let's get into the fun facts. Scientific Stuff is the first episode of Season 2 and the 6th Beavis and Butt-Head episode overall. And later airings of this episode were edited, which cut out 2 parts. The first part is when Daria was at Beavis and Butt-Head's house, and the boys were mentioning lighting farts on fire. The second are the thought bubbles above each Beavis and Butt-Head's head, where it shows the matches striking along the boxes. They cut that out too. There were 2 new characters who made their debut in this episode. This episode marks the first appearance of Daria Morgendorffer. She's voiced by Tracy Grandstaff, and how Daria looks, at least in this episode, she appears with long brown hair, and she wears glasses, a black t-shirt with a tan overcoat, a necklace with a crystal pendant, brown skirt, black tights, and dark brown boots. She's the only highly intelligent girl in Beavis and Butt-Head's class who tolerates them and talks to them and, to her own amusement, likes to show them things just to see how bad the boys can screw it up. She's one of the few girls that Beavis and Butt-Head don't want to attempt to score with. Another fun fact about Daria is that she appears in 18 episodes throughout the Beavis and Butt-Head series. Then the other character, which is a lot less important character, but nevertheless, this marks the appearance of teacher Mrs. Dickey. Mrs. Dickey is voiced by Penelope Trudd. She has poofy blonde hair and tends to have a stern look on her face at all times. She appears in other episodes as a background character, such as a customer at Burger World. Mrs. Dickey appears in 6 episodes throughout the Beavis and Butt-Head series. IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, gives Beavis and Butt-Head Episode 6 Scientific Stuff a 7.6 out of 10. Now, I'll give you my review. The animation of this episode was a big step up. You can still tell it was an earlier episode, but yeah, I remember this episode as a kid vaguely. Very, very vaguely. I remember a few things. I remember the diarrhea line, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And I recall that Beavis and Butt-Head's room, how it looks, is how it looks when you look on the back of the Beavis and Butt-Head Experience CD. So that's where they got that idea from, was from this episode. You can see the posters all curled up, AC/DC poster all taped up, and used condoms hanging in the drawer, and it just looks like a nasty, nasty place. But perfect for Beavis and Butthead. To me personally, Daria as a character, I don't care for too much. But she's good to be in there to bounce off ideas with Beavis and Butthead. She's a good thing to be in to carry the story along. So with Daria being a new character introduced in this episode, it still didn't really raise the bar for me to like it more or not. It's just, yeah, okay, there's Daria. That's her. There she is. The whole opening scene with the firecracker and the toy rocket and Butthead talking about sending a teacher into space and all that, that made me go, ooh, man, that was very on the edge, especially because they were still kind of fresh from the whole incident from 1986, if anybody remembers that. That's what Butthead was referring to, and I'm surprised that, I mean, well, it was the 90s, but I was just like, wow, that made it on TV. That's pretty ballsy. Anyways, I'm gonna have to give this episode a 5.5 out of 10. It's a slight tinge above just average neutral. Throughout the episode, it had a lot of medium-sized jokes, but I would like to say the funniest thing was in the music video of In Excess when Butthead talked about how if you play the song backwards, you hear, "This sucks." I think that's probably the best joke out of the episode, personally. So 5.5 out of 10 is what I give Beavis and Butthead, Episode 6, Scientific Stuff. That's it for this episode of the Butt Chronicles, as we took a look at Beavis and Butthead Episode 6, Scientific Stuff. We got a Facebook page if you want to find us on there. Check us out. Search the Butt Chronicles on Facebook. We have like 14 likes or something now. Yeah, big stuff happening. Anyways, there you can keep updated with things, and I may post some funny memes every once in a while, Beavis and Butthead related memes. And, yeah, you all like memes, don't you? Hey, yeah. Oh, cool, yeah. And if you're looking for more content to listen to, I have another podcast called Industrial Industries World Radio, where I go over the history of all kinds of things, from candy bars to Toys R Us to, oh God, so much stuff. There's plenty of stuff to splurge and binge listen to on that podcast. So check it out if you want. Industrial Industries World Radio, the flagship podcast. And yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm your host, DJ Glowing Ice, and this has been the Butt Chronicles, your audio guide to everything Beavis and Butthead. See you next time.
Industrial Industries World Radio.